Alright, hello again. This is Jeff Scott of Blackhawk Technical College. And what I'm going to do right now is to go over uh, the next example of the payroll program that I've been working on. And this has changed quite a bit since the last iteration. I do have the same program constants that we had before as far as these right here, but I've added a couple more. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the user to enter in how many employees they have working for them. A minimum of 1 and a maximum of 10. Now in a real life situation, of course, you'd have a lot more employees than that. I understand that. But what I want to show you here, alright, I've got a string here that just comes in and it says, please enter the total number of employees between 1 and 10. And again, you have to enter a number there. And then we parse that number out, and that becomes numemps. All right. And then I've set a constant called numemployees to numemps. And then I create strings. I create arrays. An array to hold the first name. So let's say we put 3 in there for the number of employees. There'd be 3 first names, 3 last names, 3 hours, 3 rates, and 3 gross pays. And in addition, I have just one static total gross. Alright, so that's the total gross for all of my employees. So in many ways this looks like what we had before, alright, but what I've had to do was to include for each one of these the name of the variable sub I, because remember we're talking about an array, so this is an employee number right here. So again, if we put in something like 3 employees, that would represent either employee 0, employee 1, or employee 2. But the ideas are still the same. If we don't put in a name, it's going to default to FN unknown for first name. If we do put in a name, that first name that we put in is going to be put into that particular employee's first name. Same kind of thing for last name. If we put in nothing, it'll put LN unknown. If we put in a last name, it'll take that last name and it'll put it to that particular employee's last name. Same kind of thing in here with hours, that if we put it in hours that's between 0 and 84, we'll take that hours and we'll copy it to the current employee's hours. Alright, and the same kind of thing with rate. So if it's between 10 and 100, we'll take that and we'll copy it to the current employee's rate. Otherwise, we'll just put 10 there. Whereas if we don't put in a valid hours, we're going to just default it to 40. All right. Then notice with each one of these, where we are returning a value, so we've got a get, that each time we're putting in int I so it knows exactly which employee we're talking about. So again, if there were 3 employees, the first time it would be employee 0, the second time employee 1, and the third time employee 2. So I'm going to run this and I'm going to try to test a bunch of the stuff that's in here to show it to you. Last name works the same, hours works the same, rate works the same, and again, just as we did previously, I put a get gross pay in there that looks just like the old get gross pay, except that for every time, it's not hours, it's hours sub I. It's the hours of the current employee. If they're less than or equal to 40, then the gross of the current employee equals their hours of the current employee times the rate of the current employee. Otherwise, they've got overtime coming. So the gross for the employee equals their 40 hours times their regular rate, plus whatever they worked over 40 hours times 1.5. Then we come in and we grab the gross for the current employee, we add it to our total gross, and we return the gross for the current employee. We've got a get total gross pay, which just returns that. And I wanted, since that is a static variable, back up to the top to show you that. So since this is a static variable, alright, total gross, and I want to use it inside of this method, the method too has to be static, alright, which just returns the total gross. And that's it. I mean, it virtually is the same program that we had previously. Again, the difference in here is the fact that what we have done in here now is we're totally using arrays for virtually everything that we're doing in here. And if we look at the driver, did this a little bit differently. All right, I just came in here and said, okay, first name, last name, hours, rate, etc. And I got a J option pane in here now. I don't even think I need this. I don't think I need this input string in here anymore. I don't even know if I'm using that or not anymore. I am using it. Oh, because I'm still doing a double, dot parse double for these. So no, I'm wrong. I still do need that. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, create a payroll object. And for I equals 0, I less than PR dot number of employees, so the payroll dot num employees, which is basically, it's another way of saying less than whatever number we put in there. So if it was 3 employees, well, it's less than 3. Read in the employee's first name, read in the employee's last name, read in their hours and then convert it to a double, read in their rate and then convert it to a double, set the first name for each particular employee, set the last name, the hours and the rate for each particular employee. All right, so we're going to do that for each one. And then we're going to come in here and for each employee we're going to print out their information. All right, but we're calling get first name, get last name, get hours, get rate, get gross pay. And when we're all done, we're going to call get tote gross. All right, and I'm looking at this right now, and I'm not going to lie to you. I've written this. I wrote 100% of this. So if you don't like it, yeah, it's all on me. But the point is, I can already see a lot of places where it could be improved. But I'm going to try to run this, and I'm going to put in about 10 employees, just because I want to be able to test everything that's in here. Okay, so let's do a run. And first of all, let's come in and let's put a number of employees that's out of range, 0. All right, well, it just says the total gross pay is 0 and it gets done. Okay, so there were no employees. Let's come in here and put in like 100 and see what happens. Well, that's interesting. Oh, and now it's still going. That's not a good thing. So there's a mistake in our check, because I said I wanted to be able to only allow a number to go in there between 1 and 10, and it definitely was grabbing a number that was bigger than that. So we're not making any checks. So it says please enter a total number, and then we're doing it here. So what I should have done here is I should have come in and said while num amps is less than or equal to min amps. So while it's less than 0 or num amps greater than max amps. So in other words, we're validating the number of employees that we've entered. So if we put in something in here that's out of range, so if we do put in a number that's either less, all right, so if we put in a number here that's either less than so if we put in a number that's less than 1, or we put in a number that's greater than 10, all right, wait, is it complaining here? Delete this token. What doesn't like there? telling me that it wants to delete the token here. I think it's because we're trying to do processing and we're not in any kind of I'm going to do this. But I need numemps in a lot of play. Yeah. The problem is, I believe that I'm coming in here and I'm trying to do some calculations and I'm not inside of a method. And I think that's why it's pooping out here. Alright. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of the while loop. And I'm just going to trust that the user, this is a terrible thing to trust, but I'm going to trust that the user would put in a valid number. Okay? Alright. It's a terrible way to code, but I'm going to do it for right now because I can't think of another way to fix that for right now. Alright, so give me a number between 1 and 10. Let's put in 8. Alright, first name I'm going to leave it blank. Last name I'm going to leave it blank. Hours I'm going to put in out of range. So remember the hours have to be between 0 and 84. So I'm going to put in -3. Rate has to be between 10 and 100, so I'm going to put a 1 in there. Alright, that should have covered all of my out of range things. Let's try a regular employee. So I should have made $400. Let's try another employee that has overtime. Alright, let's try another employee. And we'll leave the last name out. Let's try another employee that will leave the first name out. Alright, let's try another employee where we'll just leave out their hours, or we'll have those be their hours be too big, so we'll put in 100. And we'll give them a rate of 20. Another employee, let's give them valid hours. Let's give them an invalid rate. Alright, and our last employee, which we'll just say Ken Jones, $10 an hour and works 10. So let's look at this. Here's where we basically tested everything. So there was no value there, no value there, no value there, so we replaced a blank with FN unknown. We replaced a blank with LN unknown. We replaced an out of range hours worked with 40 and out of range hourly rate with 10, so that all worked. Alright, that was the same thing, but those were all valid. That was valid with overtime. Here we left off the last name, but everything else was valid. Here we left off the first name and everything else was valid. Here everything was valid, I believe. No, we put in an invalid hours. Okay, next we put in an invalid rate. That was all okay. And the total gross is right there. So what I tried to show you in this example, and this has been very short, but what I want to do, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that possibly a good way to teach this class would be that rather than just giving you this code, we would key these examples in for chapters 1 through 9 or 1 through 11 or however far we get. And that's what we would do for the in-class kind of presentation. And then if there's time, we would do a program for 1 or 2 for each chapter too. And out of those 1 or 2, if we did 2 for each chapter, let's say, one of those 2 we do as a class, and then you'd be assigned the other one, and you get a week to work on it. We'll see how it works as we go through everything. Okay? All right, like I said, that was going to be very short, or it was shorter than I thought it would be. So in just a couple minutes, I'm going to come back with the Chapter 9 example. So let me close this. I'm not even sure what Chapter 9 looks like. Like I said, it's been a while since I've looked at this. So it's very similar to the other one. And this also looks very similar to the last one. So we'll have to see what else we put in here to kind of make this a little bit different than the last one we had. But I will be back with that presentation very shortly.